Hey guys, what's good? Coming at you with another video on one I wanted to make for a while. A comparison of two watches that occupy kind of the same segment of the market. Two dive watches. On the right, we have the Rolex 11610 Submariner date. This is the maxi case version. So this was the first version to have the ceramic bezel. And just a beautiful, iconic watch. You know, the maxi case refers to the thick lugs. It's got a maxi dial indicated by the big markers, and just a lovely watch, a great watch to wear. And the sub date, of course, because it has a date complication. And on our left, we have the Panerai Submersible. The 42 millimeter. This is the reference 683. I made a pretty long video about this watch whenever I got it. A watch I really like and I've really enjoyed owning. And these are both watches that I actually own in my collection. You know, one thing about my videos is that I actually own all of the watches I show. And so it's not as if I go to a jewelry store and ask them to borrow a watch and just make a quick video about it, or like somebody sends me a watch to review. I actually have to buy the watches or trade for the watches. And I think it makes for like kind of a unique perspective, you know. There's a lot of people doing watch reviews, on YouTube, on Instagram, or on the internet. And it's interesting, you can kind of tell the people that actually, spend their hard-earned money on the watches, and those that just kind of get them and just kind of like make some flippant comments about them, how they're not this or not that. And, for those of us who don't have the luxury of just being able to look at a bunch of watches and have people send us watches, I think it's important to always take those kinds of videos with a grain of salt. Anyway, let's talk about these two in particular, because I feel like these are two that maybe some people debate between. And so I'm going to zoom out a little bit and we can see them a little bit more closely here. And so you can see that the sizes are similar. You know, the Rolex, the 11610, is a 40 millimeter in diameter watch, and the Panerai, the 683, is a 42 millimeter watch. And you can kind of see that. I mean, you can see the Panerai is a few millimeters larger, and you can see that the dial is maybe a little bit larger. But, both watches fulfill, ISO diving requirements. Both of them have unidirectional bezels. So on the Rolex, it's a really nice, really easy 120 click bezel. And so, just really a pleasure to use. And like I said, this is a ceramic bezel. The first version of the Rolexes that used ceramic bezel technology. And so that's the sub date. And if you look at the 683, this is also a ceramic bezel. But you can see how ceramic can be treated differently. The Rolex has a kind of a shiny finish on the bezel, whereas the Panerai has a matte finish on the bezel. Both awesome, like both are really really cool. So that was the Rolex has a 120 click bezel, and this Panerai, let's see. So that's a 60 click bezel. So in between each section, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So each minute is only one click. So, but both bezels functional and work really well. Both are pretty easy to turn. You can see the thickness of the bezel there. And so like I said, two different ways of kind of doing the same thing. The crown's a little bit different. Rolex has its famous trip lock crown, designated by the 3 dots here. Just a really secure connection. So it's a screw down crown. So that really works well. Whereas the Panerai uses its, and they're very proud of this, the registered trademark system, where you pull this, you can adjust the time and date. And look, when you close that, it compresses the crown closed. And so yeah, just really cool. But these watches are pretty similar, aren't they? I mean, features wise, they're quite similar. Time, date, you know, seconds, hands. And so like I said, watches that you or someone you know may be considering. Let's try them on the wrist one by one and kind of see what's similar, what works and what doesn't. Okay, I'm back, and let's try these two watches on wrist. You know, by the way, I'm wearing this watch. This is the Casio Frogman. That's the GWF-1000. So we'll talk a little bit more about this watch kind of in the middle of the video, but I'm wearing this for a very specific purpose. Anyway, I'm going to take this monster off. And you know, let's see. Let's try the Rolex first. Let's see how that fits. So, you know, another big difference between these two watches is that the Rolex comes on this beautiful oyster bracelet. And regardless of what you think about Rolex, you know, regardless of kind of what your favorite watch brand may be, and, you know, a lot of people, you know, have debated this, but in my mind, there's really no debate. No company makes better bracelets for their sport watch than Rolex. It is just like an absolute work of art. I mean, the quality is just staggering. It is so solid. It has an easy link adjustment. It's just such a pleasure to use. And so one big plus on all Rolex sport watches, the bracelet quality is outrageous. It's so good. So I'm going to just slide this on my wrist. It's a heavy watch. You know, it's all solid stainless steel. But there you see it. I mean, so this is like the quintessential Rolex. I mean, this is the Rolex sub-date, kind of like maybe the starter, you know, sport watch from Rolex. It's the 11610. So, you know, the previous version had maybe a little smaller case dimensions. That was also 40 millimeters, but this one visually looks a lot bigger because the thickness of the lugs really just increased the size. That had an aluminum bezel, and just like I said, the finishes are just top notch, and it's just such a pleasure to wear on the wrist. It's comfortable, and while it is a heavier watch, it's certainly not heavy by any sense of the imagination. And the watch is always in style. You know, the current version, they upsized it a little bit. You know, even Rolex has to try and get with the times a little bit. So it went from 40 millimeters in diameter to 41 millimeters in diameter. They changed the lug width a little bit. So instead of being a 20 millimeter lug width, it became an odd number, a 21 millimeter lug width, but they thinned out ever so slightly these lugs. And it just kind of maybe resonates with the older sort of dimensions of the case. But regardless, you know, the ceramic, otherwise it's basically the same watch, just a little bit larger and a larger lug diameter, a little thinner lugs. So Rolex, the sub-date is just a classic watch. How much is it? It's hard to say. They're very hard to get at retail. So the 11610 usually is around a $12,000, $13,000 watch. Pretty expensive. I mean, it's certainly an expensive watch. The newer one, I think that's the 126610. I believe that's the designation. That goes for around, I guess, $13,000, $14,000. So you certainly pay a premium for the Rolex name. Also for the Rolex quality. I think the market price is very appropriate for that watch. So like I said, a beautiful watch on the wrist. Let's take it off and try the Panerai. Again, I can't say enough about that bracelet. I mean, it is like superb. So I'll put that down here, and then you can see I got the Panerai on a NATO strap. I've been wearing it like this a lot lately. It just really kind of works with this watch. You know, it came with a rubber strap, which is excellent. Lug width here is 22 millimeters, and I'm sure you guys know this. It has a quick chain strap system that works super well. Richemont does an awesome job with user being able to size the strap, the bracelet pretty easily. You know, Rolex, you know, their bracelets are just rock solid. These are all screwed in links. So yeah, I mean, so this one is on a strap. It can be on a rubber strap. You know, obviously there's like tons of aftermarket leather straps, and the straps are kind of like a thing with Panerai. You know, you can really change it up and make it your own. Maybe not as much so with the Rolex, because while you certainly can put this on different, you know, straps, and some companies make some rubber straps for it. To my eye, I just feel like the Rolex just looks correct on the bracelet. It's just a shame to have that quality bracelet and not take full advantage of it. Anyway, sorry, I'm rambling. Let's try the Panerai on the wrist and see how it feels. You know, everybody knows I am a Panerai fan. I am a supporter of the brand. I am an apologist for the brand. And I really like this 42 millimeter submersible line. I think they do a lot of things correctly, and it just fits. It fits really well. You know, it's a smaller Panerai, but gosh, it's still a really big watch. I mean, it's larger than the standard men's sports watch, which is, you know, whether you like it or not, the sub date. And so you can see kind of like how it fits on my wrist. Just super comfortable, just really comfortable. This is a strap version. It does come with a bracelet, actually. I haven't had a chance to try the bracelet. I'm sure it's excellent. You know, I'm sure they did a really good job with the bracelet on these 42 millimeter submersibles. Regardless of how it feels, though, I really don't even need to have it in hand to know that the Rolex bracelet is going to be superior. I just have that much faith in Rolex and their bracelet technology. But, you know, I love the Panerai. You know, I love the Panerai. I really like it. I find it very easy to wear. Because I don't have the bracelet, it wears lighter than the Rolex. And while it is a larger watch, it still wears just as comfortably. So this is just a quick look at two watches, both of which I own, both of which are in my collection, and both of which I love. You know, I think there's certainly room for both of these in anybody's collection. And I think maybe some people are debating between the two of these, whether it's this version of the sub-date, the older one, or the newer one. You know, when it comes to Rolexes, when it comes to subs right now, I would tell you to try to find one with the ceramic bezel. I think that's important. While the older ones, the ones with aluminum bezels, I've owned a lot of those over the years. Those are excellent. I think the market has clearly nominated the ceramic bezel technology as a winner, and certainly you pay a premium for that. This comes in a no date version as well. That's cool. I really like dates on my watches. They make them much more wearable for me, so I would opt for the sub date. But you know, pricing is tough. I mean, like, that's tough. You're not going to get a discount on a Rolex sub date. In fact, I mean, if I'm telling you the market price for this watch is about $13,000, give or take. You know, I got my Panerai, I traded for it, but you know, this can be had for around $10,000. It usually trades at about that. You know, it's right at $10,000, which is right around the MSRP. So the Panerai is actually a cheaper watch. It's a newer watch. It's a cheaper watch. Both are good. I'm not gonna tell you which one is better and which one is worse, because, like I said, I own both of them. I would encourage you to try on a friend's Rolex sub, because everybody's got that friend that's got a Rolex sub. And if possible, I would encourage you to try on a 42 millimeter aluminum submersible. They're available at ADs, and so you can try them on and kind of see for yourself. I think both are excellent. And like I said, I own both. I mean, they're both keepers for me, and I think there's definitely place in a collection for both of those. So that's these two watches. But then look at this watch. You know, these two watches, the Rolex and the Panerai, are what I would call, you know, they're certainly tool watches, certainly men's watches and men's divers. But I mean, if you want the real thing, what people use when things absolutely have to work, you use something like this. I mean, this is the Casio Frogman. This is the GWF-1000, kind of like the standard operating issue. I think it's the 5th generation of the Frogman, but that's what people that are involved in unpleasant work, as they say in the business, use day in and day out and rely on. Look at the size of this thing, man. I mean, this thing is like massive. But you know, that this is also like a $400 watch. This is a, you know, $10,000 watch, and the Rolex is like let's say a $13,000 watch. Oddly, all three of them are perfect. Weirdly, all three of them are in my collection, and weirdly, I love them all, and they're all keepers for me. My point is that you can have, you know, all kinds of watches in your collection, and you can enjoy them. But I hope this video gives y'all a little bit of insight into two watches that I love, two watches I own, two watches that are in my collection, and two watches that I think would make great additions for anybody out there. And you know, it doesn't have to be an either or thing. Like if you can't afford a sub, you can love the Panerai and appreciate the sub. And vice versa. If you have a sub and you had it for a while, you can love the sub and still appreciate a Panerai for what it's worth. Anyway, sorry guys, I'm rambling. I always tend to do that whenever I talk about something I am passionate about. You know, watches and sport watches is certainly a subject that I'm passionate about. I hope these videos give you some entertainment. I hope they give you some insight into watches and you know, this hobby. It can be crazy. People can be very passionate about it, and I think that's only a good thing. All right, sorry, I promise I'm done. I will talk to you guys soon, and thank you for sticking around. Appreciate it. Bye.